Welcome to Event Charts for the weekly analysis. Hope you all had a good long weekend. Last week on Monday, SPY opened above both the resistance level which we discussed and marked on last week's weekly analysis. And on Tuesday and Wednesday, it retraced completely to fill the gap. And Thursday, it again opened the gap up above the 20 and 9 EMAs, but it closed below this resistance level. Good thing is price was still able to reclaim the 20 EMA on daily time frame. Looking at the weekly time frame, after getting support from this fair value gap as we discussed on last week's analysis, last week it was just a consolidation and price is still a little far away from the 20 EMA on weekly time frame. Looking at the hourly time frame, on the hourly time frame after opening gap up on Monday, it retraced fully to retest this double bottom neckline support level which we discussed on last week's analysis. So it retested it on Wednesday, and on Thursday it again opened the gap up above this resistance level or this higher time frame inverse head and shoulder pattern neckline. So it just retested this neckline. At the closer of Wednesday session with a hammer candle, and Thursday it again gapped up above this resistance as well as above the 200 SMA on hourly time frame, and it was just consolidating between this resistance and this support for the entire day on Thursday. On the hourly time frame, price broke this lower high of this downtrend and retraced back to form the higher low here and took support from the 50% 50 retracement between this high and low. Now price is on this smaller time frame downtrend for this higher time frame uptrend. Looks like we have this pattern on the lower time frame like 15 minutes. So if we move on to 15 minutes time frame, price has this inverse head and shoulder pattern. So if price can close above this higher low on the lower time frame like 15 minutes time frame, then it could move higher to test this resistance of 754.61 or even the all-time high around 758 level. On the Thursday session, this level was acting as a major resistance. So if this pattern gets breakdown and if price is a rejection at this level around 745.4, then price may come back down to test this support as well as the next retracement level of 733.34 level. So breakout on either side will decide the market direction. Breaking out above this resistance level of 750 and turning it as a support during the lower time frame will lead the market to test this all-time high or even break above this level. If we break down below this resistance and 20 EMA, then if price starts rejecting its 20 EMA, then we may push down to test this support again or even this one around 712 level. Looking at Microsoft, so Microsoft is still trading in this golden zone level which we discussed last week. Looking at the weekly time frame, it's still holding this trend line support. This trend line support as well as the 200 SMA and weekly time frame holding the 78.6 pip retracement between the swing low and swing high. So Microsoft is sitting as a critical stage. If it runs the bullish candlestick reversal pattern at this place on the weekly time frame, either next week or next to next week, there are possibilities for it to retrace back to test at least this resistance around 407, followed by this one at 429 again. Suppose if this breaks below this trend line, and if this area starts rejects, then possibilities are there for Microsoft to test this support around 304 or 5, followed by this one around 280, 182. If it runs a bullish candlestick pattern here at the second retest of the weekly 200 SMA, then the possibilities are there for even to break this resistance and continue with its uptrend. Looking at Apple. Apple, as we discussed last week, it retraced back to test this resistance and printed a bearish engulfing candle on Wednesday, rejecting from this resistance as well as from this fair value gap on the 20 EMA. If it start rejecting at this resistance level and break down below this lower time frame trend line, then possibilities are there for to price to come and test this demand zone or this previous resistance breakout. Looking at the weekly time frame, last week it printed a bullish inside bar candle, reclaiming the 9 EMA on weekly time frame, but it still has this over at fair value gap on the weekly time frame. Unless price takes out this resistance, price may come back down to test this support level. Looking at Amazon, like we discussed last week, price still took support from this previous resistance breakout level, but couldn't close above this resistance level. Printed a doji candle last week, closing above 20 EMA. Like Apple, Amazon also has this overhead fair value gap on the weekly time frame. So if it rejects from this level, then it may come and test this 61.8% retracement between this high and low, as well as this fair value gap and the inverse fair value gap levels. So looking at the daily time frame, Amazon has kind of a double bottom pattern setup, but price is still trading below the 20 EMA, rejecting from this resistance level. Unless if it closes above this resistance and turning that resistance as well as 20 EMA support, price will be still in a short-term downtrend. American Airlines, as we discussed last week, after printing this bullish engulfing candle and the double bottom setup around the 200 SMA as well as this previous resistance level, price moved from 14.65 level to the high of 16.19, testing this resistance level. So if it retraces back, then we have this moving averages as well as this fair value gap as a support. In case if it breaks above this, then we have this larger time frame trend line resistance. This trend line resistance of this descending triangle pattern, which may cause the price to push down to test these support levels. So if price pulls back into the support levels between 14.40 and 15.19, and if it prints any bullish candlestick pattern setup, then it may go and break this resistance to test 18.75 level. Looking at RBLX, on the weekly time frame, it is at this trend line support level, which it took support 1, 2, 3, and it is at the fourth time, forming a double bottom pattern here. And last week it printed a large bullish candle, testing this resistance. Price is still trading below 20 EMA on weekly time frame, but on the daily time frame, price closed above 20 EMA for last 4 sessions and breaking the neckline of this double bottom setup. Currently, price is at this trend line resistance. So if it price retraces back to test this support zone, like between 47.5 and 44.15 level, where we have this 20 EMA also around 46. So if it price retraces back and forms any bullish candlestick pattern here, which may help to break this resistance of 51.5 as well as this trendline resistance to test this resistance around 60 followed by 72. Looking at core wave. So core wave took back-to-back support at the 200 SMA level on daily time frame, and last week it closed well above the 20 EMA on daily time frame, leaving a fair value gap here. And on Thursday session, it retested that fair value gap. So if it closes above this resistance level of 120, 122 and turns this level as a support, then it may go and test 150 followed by 184, because price broke out of this larger time frame descending triangle pattern and retested the same level. If you look at the weekly time frame, it broke out of this larger time frame descending triangle pattern and rendered a bullish engulfing candlestick pattern at the retest level of this trend line breakout as well as the 20 EMA on weekly time frame. So breaking this resistance on daily time frame and turning it as a support would lead to test this resistance at 150 and 184. So that will complete this pattern. Thank you so much for watching.